Welcome to the Business Spotlight, powered by Payrock, where we shine the light on incredible people that make our community thrive. Today we have Wayne Stewart, who's with Visit Casper. Wayne is the Director of Marketing and Communications. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Visit Casper's role in promoting everything that's awesome about our community, about Casper. So Wayne, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Excited to talk about Casper.
So let's talk about Visit Casper. With the broad strokes, what is Visit Casper and what is your vision for Casper?
Our vision statement is to create a more dynamic Casper for residents to return to, which implies that they're already visiting and that residents want to brag about.
All right. So how do you do that exactly? You promote different activities here in town?
We do. We promote. We try to promote basically everything and anything. Of course, when you think tourism, you're likely to think museums and outdoor attractions like Casper Mountain or the North Platte River, but it includes restaurants, our breweries, our wellness and health facilities.
Right.
People travel for wealth and wellness retreats, and our events at David Street Station. So that's a quick way for me to just rattle off a few of the things we promote, but it really truly is everybody and anybody that drives tourism in Casper.
All things Casper.
All things Casper.
That's great. So how does Casper stand out from other communities? What are some of the key things that you're trying to promote? Why are we different than another city here in Wyoming?
Yeah, good question. I think Casper is incredibly unique. We're actually going through kind of a brand refresh right now, and our new branding, our new tagline is the only, and it really hones in on the experiences that you really truly can only have in Casper. So whether that is experiencing our incredibly accessible outdoor recreation. Casper Mountain is a 10-minute drive from downtown, and the North Platte River and the North Platte River trails are accessible from almost anywhere in Casper, or it's taking a trek with Historic Trails West in Morris Carter in an authentic covered Pioneer wagon on the actual ruts of the Oregon Trail. There are so many experiences here that I truly think you can only have in Casper. So with our new branding, it just is a way for us to really hone in on those experiences. Okay.
So is there an ideal tourist that you're looking to attract here to Casper? Who are you focusing on?
Yeah. So we've built out a few different visitor profiles, and we build that out based off of data and insights that we gather from the different platforms that we invest in. So just to name a few of those visitor profiles, we of course have outdoor enthusiasts, and we have weekend getawayers. So anybody driving from about a 2 to 6 hour drive market. We have Yellowstone vacationers. Generally, it's a family road tripping to Yellowstone. We also have event attendees. So whether that's somebody who's here for a conference or a convention or here for one of our many sporting events. We also have Casper locals that we market to, which a lot of people, I think, don't realize that we do market to our local community. But of course, our marketing and our the things that we share about Casper is going to be different and change depending on who you are and what you're interested in. But those are the visitor profiles that we tend to see the most of, and who we spend the most amount of time and money marketing to.
Back in the day, wasn't the what you did, what you're doing today, wasn't a part of the Chamber of Commerce, like the tourism aspect? And obviously, the Chamber of Commerce is doing something different now. But weren't they kind of together?
Great question, and I don't know if I can answer that. I'm unsure if Visit Casper was ever a part of the Chamber of Commerce in Casper. It is different depending on where you go. I think the Tourism Bureau in Cody, Wyoming was a part of the Cody Chamber of Commerce at one point in time.
Okay.
It's very different, again, depending on where you're at, depending on the state. I worked in St. George at the Tourism Bureau there, and we were technically classified as a state organization. We are our own organization, so we are funded a little bit differently, which I think a lot of people don't fully understand. Right. It's actually a 2% lodging tax that is voted on every 2 years in Natrona County, every 4 years in Natrona County. And so you only pay that tax if you're staying in a hotel. And so visitors, of course, tend to be the ones that pay it. Our local residents don't pay that tax. So that's a little bit different and makes us somewhat unique to the chamber.
Right. Because I was going to ask you, how are you funded? Because it sounds like you're a state operation, or maybe you're privately funded, because you're basically promoting all of the great things that we have in our city, our county, and even our state. So your funding comes directly from tourists. So the tourism industry actually funds your activity to promote more tourism activity. So it's kind of a circle, a close circle there.
It does. Yeah, so we are technically, I think we're kind of classified as a state entity.
Okay.
But again, it's a 2% lodging tax in Natrona County that is voted on by our community every 4 years. Along with that 2% lodging tax, there is a state of Wyoming 5% lodging tax. And from the fund that collects in Natrona County, we get 2% of that 5%. So it's the 2% from the states, 5%, and then a 2% voted on by the residents in Natrona County. So 4% total. But again, it's a lodging tax, and you only pay it if you're staying in a hotel in Natrona County.
Got it. Sounds like a motivating factor as well, because obviously the better that tourism is doing, the more revenue that generates for Visit Casper and the other tourism activities. So it kind of like motivates you to promote things better and get more activity and more interest and more visitors to join us. And it doesn't affect the local residents, the Casperites, the people in Natrona County, things like that. So it sounds like a great opportunity.
Yes, we definitely have to do our jobs well in order to get paid.
Right. Yeah. But that's wonderful. What are the challenges that tourism is facing here in Casper? Can you talk to us about some of the struggles that maybe you're facing in this industry and the industry as a whole?
Yeah. I would say in regards to Casper's tourism industry, one of the biggest challenges I think that we have is access and ability to get here. Unless you are road tripping, you're either flying into Casper's airport, which is a great airport, and we're lucky to have that asset, but it does have limited access and flight service, or you're flying into Denver, and then you have to drive 4 hours, or you're flying into Salt Lake and you have to drive 6 hours.
Right.
So in comparison to some other destinations that, of course, are a metropolitan area or sit just 15, 20, 30 minutes outside of a metropolitan area, we're a little bit harder to get to.
Right.
So I think that's probably our biggest challenge, and we definitely are working on ways to combat that.
Right. We don't have a train system yet that brings people successfully or timely from Denver to here, things like that. So it is, at the same time, people will go to where they want to go, and so if they're attracted to things that are different activities that are happening here, like the CNFR or like the basketball championship tournament we're going to talk about here shortly, people come here on purpose. They choose to come here to vacation, to experience what Casper has to offer. So I think that sometimes the limitations that we have because of where we're at geographically is overcome by the value we have as a community. So
absolutely. It just goes back to how do we market Casper and the experiences that you truly can only have here to the right people.
Absolutely. Tourism has a major economic impact, obviously, on our community. We see a lot of tourists in the summer months, some maybe in the winter months if they want to go skiing or things like that. But it's primarily, I would assume, the summer months. What are you doing to improve? What is Visit Casper doing to improve the positive economic impact that tourism has here locally?
Yeah, so I want to touch on the economic impact because it is important. And so to try and paint a full picture for you, I've got some quick analytic points. Okay. So in 2023, we welcomed 831,500 visitors to Natrona County. They spent a total of $395.2 million, and that helped power 2,890 jobs and contributed about $18.3 million to our state and local taxes. So tourism is huge. It's Wyoming's second largest economic driver, and it has a massive impact that I think we try to educate our community on. Sometimes we, could do a little bit better, but it's huge, and we want people to know that.
Absolutely, it's bigger than I thought.
Yeah. And then in regards to how do we maximize that impact and really make sure that we are capitalizing on our visitation. We do it in a lot of ways. So I would say it's really important for us to get the right resources in front of our visitors. It, of course, is our job to market and advertise so that visitors come here. But once they are here, it is our responsibility to ensure that they are moving around our destination and spending money in several places.
Right.
So if we're marketing Casper Mountain, we want to do more than just send somebody up to Casper Mountain. When they get here, we want to provide them with our digital passports to send them to multiple different businesses. We want to provide them with maps and 2-3 day itineraries so that hopefully they do extend their stay and spend more time downtown, eating at our restaurants, shopping at our really unique stores like Lou Talbert's, and going to our museums and experiencing our arts and culture.
Absolutely. And the CNFR is one of those major events that you try to focus on. Do you have key strategies or specific things you try to do for the CNFR?
Yeah, so that is Casper's largest event. I like to call it Casper Super Bowl. In 2023, it contributed about $2.3 million to our economy.
All right.
And we partner with those event organizers. We partner with the Fort Wyoming Center to try to really capitalize on that visitation. It's just, as far as numbers go, it's about 400 plus collegiate athletes that travel from around the nation to compete, their families, their friends, and spectators. So along with our year-round marketing and advertising that we do to promote the event, once those visitors are in destination, it again is very important for us to provide them with resources so that they are moving around and spending money throughout our community.
Right. So not just the CNFR. You're attracting them here for the event, but there's also other things that they can obviously do while they're here.
Absolutely. So I touched on the resources. We provide them with the passports, the itineraries, all that information, so that they, feel urged to come downtown and maybe go to an event at David Street Station, whatever it might be. But we also work closely with our local businesses to provide them with coupon codes and flyers, and we stuff those into their welcome bags.
Okay.
And that, again, is just another incentive for them to come and spend money downtown or throughout the community.
Right, because there's a lot of things they can do while they're here that's not related or directly related to the CNFR. Obviously, Lou Talbert's is very, very much associated with the rodeo culture. How do you focus on, or do you focus on, trying to bring people back that came during the CNFR event, but they would maybe come back a month later or 2 months later? Is there a way to attract that demographic back here?
Yes, there is. We try really hard to get information in front of them while they're here about Central Wyoming Fair and Rodeo and the Championship of Champions Indian Relay Races. Those are two events that we kind of see a likely audience. But once they leave, we then look at kind of who came for the event, where those visitors came from, and we market those areas and those demographics, and we push advertising to them that highlights the Central Wyoming Fair and Rodeo and the Indian Relay Races.
But the CNFR is actually, what is it, a 5-day event? Is that how long it is?
It is Sunday through Saturday.
So
6 days.
6 day event.
6 days.
So $2.3 million in 2023, 2.3 in just 6 days, in 1 week, in one full week.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And I think we might add like a day or two on the end of the start and or at the start and then at the end, just to accommodate those travelers that get here early and maybe stay a day or two later. But it's about a 6 to, I would say, maybe 9 day time frame that we calculate those numbers.
Right. But still, that's a very intense moment for you. So when I was thinking about reaching out to Visit Casper, I thought about this a couple days before the CNFR event. I thought it could be best to reach out afterward, because you're probably all hands on deck focusing on that event.
Yeah, we were very busy. We also, for the first time this year, hosted an event at David Street Station to kind of kick off the week of CNFR, which was really geared towards locals who maybe don't always attend CNFR or who maybe have never attended CNFR, and it was us trying to bring that event downtown to David Street Station.
All right.
So you had line dancing, you had a lot of Western vendors set up in booths, you had Green Acres Corn Maze come out and do a petting zoo with their animals, carriage rides, horse rides for the kids. It was all free. Families loved it. And again, it's just a way for us to kind of promote CNFR and share with our local community why that event is so important and why it's unique.
Absolutely. And you touched on some things I wanted to get into. There's obviously the economic impact of the CNFR and that 6-day time frame, but there are other things besides economic impact. There's the culture of Casper. There's the culture of our state. There are other things, just the pride, to be a part of this Casper community, things like that. How do you focus on those things when you're not possibly not looking at just the economic benefit? What about the other things that just to show the personality of Casper and what we have to offer?
Yeah, it's a great question. And when I try to answer it, sometimes I feel like I stumble on my words because it's hard to explain. But as somebody who's not from here, I don't think Casper is really Western, or the downtown feels like the Old West, where I think in some other communities around Wyoming, they've kind of held on to that. But when CNFR is here, it feels like the Western really comes out. If you spend time downtown during CNFR, people, they get out their cowboy hats, their boots, their buckles, and it feels kind of like a different downtown, which I think is really cool and speaks to the culture that event does bring in. But again, a way for us to try and promote that and share it with our community and for those athletes was the event with Davis Street Station. It was kind of conceptualized with the idea of how do we bring that culture downtown and share that with residents who don't typically attend CNFR. So to that point as well, we actually this year sponsored the Casper College Rodeo team and a couple athletes from their team who made it to CNFR. And so I think that built a lot of community and hometown pride behind those athletes. And if you attend that event, you'll hear the huge applause and cheers that the Casper College athletes receive from the fans and the University of Wyoming athletes receive. So you can tell and you can feel that it is an event that the community and the state really rallies around. Okay. You mentioned briefly how you're working with local businesses. How do you, for the CNFR specifically, how do you partner with local businesses so they get the attention, not just the Ford Wyoming Center or not just businesses that stand out as a Western wear shop, for example? How does local breweries, how does the coffee shops, because a lot of coffee shops in the area, how do they benefit from that as well? Yeah, so it can be as simple as us making sure that we're putting that printed material that promotes our coffee and bakery passport, digital passport, or our brewery passport in those athlete welcome bags, or working with businesses to provide those coupons in those bags. But we also, for the last 5 years, since 2019, we've ran an influencer campaign around CNFR, which has been really successful when you look at how it's impacted ticket sales and just the overall economic impact that the event has. So those influencers, of course, go to CNFR and attend that event, but they also make sure to highlight all the other itinerary items that they're participating in. So whether it's the brewery trail, whether it's renting a boat and going out to Alcova for a morning before they, attend CNFR, or all the different restaurants that they eat at, we make sure to highlight those and work with influencers that have a audience that is likely to attend that event, likely to visit Casper and spend money here.
Okay, you throw out the word influencer, and for part of our audience that are not familiar with that word influencer, what does that mean, and who are you specifically referring to?
Yeah, so an influencer, really, there's different types, but they tend to be somebody with a large following online. I'll shout out a local influencer, Chelsea Combe, who we worked with for the last 2 years to highlight our local Western vendors in town, like Lou Taubert's, like Cadillac Cowgirl. She does a great job of highlighting those businesses, and then she runs the red carpet event up at the Ford Wyoming Center the Friday and Saturday night of CNFR. Okay. So all of her content on her social channels for the week typically highlights that event in those businesses. We work with her to build out that itinerary and that content. We also work with this year we worked with an influencer who had a following of about 500,000 people, which was the largest we've ever worked with. And we sent her to Alcova. We sent her to Casper Mountain. We sent her to Edna's Kimball Wilkins State Park. So we do try to ensure that we are diversifying the content during the week and making sure that those influencers are spread out throughout the community.
Okay, so you're basically leveraging their following and people that are watching them into the events here we have in Casper.
Exactly.
All right. So taking a step back, looking at from Visit Casper's perspective, are events in general and attractions, things like that, is that one of your primary focuses in your strategy for the year?
It is certainly a primary focus. We of course run a lot of different marketing campaigns throughout the year. So we have a lot of different focuses, but events do have a huge impact on our community. We have our hands in about 50 plus events, and so when I say we have our hands in, that can mean a lot of different things. We have a sales team that goes out and searches for and brings in unique events like the Beard and Mustache Championships or the U.S. Biathlon Championships. Those events can come here maybe just once, or they can be a 2 or 3 year event. Other events like the Nick Fest, for those who are familiar, one of our largest arts and culture events. We're a big sponsor of that. We're a name sponsor for the Visit Casper Marathon. Some events we just help with marketing, and maybe it's a boosted social post, or we provide them with welcome bags. But as far as events that we have our hands in air quotes, those events had a total economic impact in 2023 of about $33 million.
All right.
So when you think about what I said about CNFR, $2.3 million, and that's our largest event, when you add them all up, yeah, they equal a lot, and they bring a lot to our community.
So Visit Casper has their impact brings in $33 million every year, or at least in 2023.
As far as our events go, the events that we had our hands in, estimated about $33 million.
Right. That's quite substantial.
Yeah.
So are there any upcoming events, or maybe new events that are on the horizon that you would like us to keep in mind?
Yeah, I'd love to shout out one. It's been here, I think, for about 3 years, so it's not brand new. But if you haven't attended the Championship of Champions Indian Relay Races, it's a really unique event. What those athletes can do is pretty mind-blowing. And it was actually just featured on 60 Minutes. So they came last year, and they did an episode on it.
All right.
So it got a nice little spotlight shined on it, and excited for the event this year.
Interesting. Where's that at?
It's in September, September 20th through the 22nd, and it's at the Central Wyoming Fairgrounds.
Okay, which is here
in Casper.
Because I think I read one recently that was in Cody. There's a similar event in Cody, but you're speaking about one here.
Yes, I think they do have like several different events, and then Casper hosts the Championship of Champions.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you leverage technology to help you in what you're doing? Is that your primary focus? Is to work on social media platforms or things like that, or do you use print as well?
Yeah, we have a pretty robust and diverse marketing plan, but it does include digital, print, social media campaigns. It includes just regular sponsorships with local events, but we do work with a digital marketing agency, and they run really the meat and potato of our marketing campaigns. So they do our meta advertising, our Google SEM, search engine marketing, and our Google Display Network advertising, and that's, I think, where the largest or where the bulk of our digital marketing budget goes. But we market in a lot of different ways to a lot of different people. It's kind of hard to put all of that into words, but I actually plan about 6 months ahead in our marketing budget. So we do a lot. So
digital is obviously one important aspect of it, but not everyone is on social media.
Correct.
You know, there are certain demographics, certain age groups where they're more on certain platforms. We had this conversation recently with Kyle and with the city council, and how city council is trying to reach certain demographics, and you have to adapt for sure. So digital is one, but how are you adapting to certain demographics that are not on digital platforms?
Yeah. So we do use, I believe I've mentioned it, a data tracking platform to really gather valuable insights into our demographics and who comes here. It's called Zartico. It's a third-party data geolocation data tracking platform. And with those insights, we're able to really plan our marketing campaigns out, like I mentioned, 6 months out. But we do campaigns with iHeartMedia, where we do streaming on free streaming channels in some of our top visitation markets. We do, I mentioned print, so we are in a couple magazines. And I make sure to spread those out throughout the year, so we're not oversaturated at one time per year. This last year, we ran a campaign with a company called Carvertise, where we basically wrapped cars in the Denver metropolitan market with Casper branding, and those cars are Carvertise makes sure that those cars are either Uber, Lyft drivers, DoorDash drivers, and so they're driving around Denver. The campaign ran for 3 months. So they're driving around in those cars for about 3 months, estimated about 2.3 million impressions. But it's really cool because they call them swarms. And so we get to pick 5 larger events that are happening in the Denver area for those cars to be kind of front and center at. So it's kind of an updated way of billboard advertising in a way, if you think about it. But we had those cars at a Denver Rockies game, Denver Broncos game, the Great American Beer Festival, an Ed Sheeran concert. So again, it's really planning ahead and making sure that our campaigns are diverse, that we're not oversaturated at one time per year in one market, and making sure that we're spreading our money out strategically.
Yeah, I heard about that. When was that campaign? Was that last year sometime?
That was last year about this time.
Right.
I think it ran from August to October.
I heard about that. I forget who mentioned it, whether it was Tyler or whether it was another gentleman in your office that I think he moved on to the Wyo Sports Ranch.
Yep, Luke.
Luke, he might have mentioned that as well, but I forget where I heard it, but it was quite an interesting, it's like the new version of print advertising.
Exactly.
Print is, newspapers, things like that, it's still around, but there's less.
They typically get thrown away.
Right, exactly. So this is a nicer one where it's visible. It's like it's a hybrid between almost digital, because it's a temporary way of seeing things.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a very cool idea. I never heard of that before, and it's great.
Yeah, pretty unique and different. We're always looking for things like that, to be honest with you. I'm hoping this year to, in my plans, bring Casper to a community, and whether it's Denver or Salt Lake or somewhere else. Basically a pop-up event where I take bits and pieces of what is really unique to Casper and I set it up in another destination. For those who are familiar with Morris Carter and Historic Trails West, I'd love to bring his wagon to a destination and have him do one of his cookout dinners on a Dutch oven. I'd love to have some of our artists come out and display their art. And kind of show that scene, or one of our breweries or Backwards Distilling Company come out and provide drinks and cocktails. So I've seen a couple other destinations do that and kind of utilize that type of campaign, and it's on my list of goals. Yeah,
I think if Amber and the team over at Backwards are going to Denver, I think I might follow the truck down there. So we mentioned the Wyo Sports Ranch. Is that one of your partnerships, or one of the things you focus on during the year? How do you leverage what they're trying to accomplish as well?
Yeah, so they'll certainly be a big partner to us moving forward. Absolutely. This past year, as they've been moving the dirt around and building the foundation of their facility, we ran a pretty large campaign with Sports Destination Management just to get the word out about that new facility. So that campaign kind of focused on the fact that we've been able to host very large sporting events in Casper, like CNFR, like the U.S. Biathlon Championships, and all of our other high school state championships, which I haven't mentioned yet. But not only have we been able to host those, but our hosting abilities are going to be next level as soon as we get this facility up and running. So that campaign ran for this past year. They now have their team put in place as far as marketing goes and business development goes, so they'll be working hard to secure events for that facility, but certainly we'll be collaborating with them moving forward, and they'll be a big partner. I think something exciting I can share already is next year the kind of trade show that happens at CNFR will take place at the Wyo Sports Ranch. So just more room for vendors, more space to walk around. And I think that'll be really cool to kind of see those complexes host at the same time, and
Absolutely.
for that visitation to kind of spread between the two.
Is that the Mercantile that they were referring to?
Yep, exactly.
Is that the place, the venue for these things? That's interesting, super interesting. So yeah, definitely a lot of new activity happening in Casper, and a lot of economic impact we're going to see in the next couple of years through the Wyo Sports Ranch and other events. Casper's hosting a basketball event. What does that entail? Because I have to be honest, it's not in my purview of things that I'm aware of. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's honestly not in my purview either. I did play basketball in high school. I think I sat the bench in 9th grade, and then I quit. But the NJCAA Division I Women's Basketball Championship, we hosted it last year. We'll host it again in 2025. So very excited for that, and very hopeful that the Casper College women's basketball team will make that championship again. They did last year, and they had a pretty great attendance. And so it was cool to see a lot of hometown fans kind of rally around that event in the arena. But I think our sales team did a really good job of making the community aware of that event. We actually did what was called a nonprofit madness. And so we partnered with a few different nonprofits in Casper and assigned each nonprofit to a team. And the further that their team made it in the tournament, the more money they raised. So the money was donated and then given to those nonprofits based on how far their teams advanced. But that helped us kind of get some community support and some attendance for teams that aren't local and come from out of state. And I think that made it a really great experience for the athletes and participants. To kind of see some local support rally behind their team, which is, again, out of state. And they typically, if they're traveling, might not get much attendance.
Right. Interesting. So that's another one of your local sports championships you focus on as well.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
One thing that's in my purview is the brewery trail. So talk to us about the new brewery that's opening up here in the next few weeks. Hopefully, shout out to our friends Richard, Taylor, and Michelle that are opening up a Signet brewery. How are you partnering with that, and how is that going to affect the whole brewery environment?
Yeah. So. Really excited to see another brewery in Casper. Casper actually has the most breweries per capita in the state of Wyoming. So that really helps us sell our local brew scene. And people do travel and plan trips around local breweries. So it's great to have a 9th, and it's great to boast the fact that we have the most in the state. They were an awardee of the Visit Casper Marketing Co-op Initiative, which I'm sure we might get into a little bit later, but that basically allows them $2,500 of marketing funds to utilize on any type of marketing campaign that they want. In their proposal, they talked about a event where they're going to do a beer and chocolate tasting with Donnell's, so I'm very excited for that. I told them I wanted to be the first attendee. Right. But we'll make sure to get them added to our digital brewery pass, which is pretty popular. We kind of incentivize users to visit more than 6 breweries, and if they do, they can come into our office and get a $25 gift card to a brewery at random, so they get a little prize out of it. But that pass, again, very popular. Visitors use it, but locals can use it as well. So if you're listening and you want to hit up some of the breweries, I urge you to download that pass and utilize it.
Absolutely. Where's it at?
That is at visitcasper.com.
Got it. I will definitely be downloading that.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. So the brewery trail, is that an initiative of Visit Casper, or did the breweries develop that idea?
It is an initiative of ours, and we work very closely with the breweries to develop that. They, of course, do their own brewery trail events, which are very popular as well. But the pass is something that we can market year-round to visitors and provide to visitors year-round, and say no matter what time no matter what time of year it is, even if there's not a brewery trail event going on, go do your own. Use this pass and make sure to hit up at least a couple of them.
Right. if we move on from economic impact, there are other qualitative factors that you probably are measuring. How do you measure your impact over, maybe 2023? You're in the middle of 2024. How do you measure things to make sure what you're doing is actually being effective?
Yeah, I mean, it's I love the question, and it's a question that I'm very passionate about. It's hard to answer outside of the data and that total economic impact number, because it is relative to, I think, who you're asking. But I think the questions we need to ask ourselves, and how we kind of assess that is, one, are we positively and effectively serving our community partners and stakeholders?
Mm-hmm.
Two, are we developing and nurturing those relationships? And three, are they benefiting from the work that we're doing? And so if we answer all those questions in a positive way, and we are impacting them, we are helping them, we are building those relationships, then in my book, that's a success. I think we do work very hard to ensure that we're promoting anybody and everybody in Casper. We share the love between our breweries, our coffee shops, our restaurants, our attractions. At least we try to. We do make an effort to take time and do site visits at several different businesses at different times throughout the year. So we'll go meet with them at their facility and talk to them about how things are going and how they think the industry is, and what challenges and problems that they're facing, and can we find solutions to them. And if we can't, we'll go back to our office, put our heads together, and figure out what resources we can provide them with, who we can put them in touch with, what recommendations we can make to at least help try and solve those problems, if they have any. So I think really it's that relationship building, and making sure that we are supporting them and that they know we're here to support them, because ultimately that is our main goal, is to support and help those businesses in Casper prosper.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. And so how long have you been doing that? How long has Visit Casper been around? When was it developed?
Great question. I do not know off the top of my head. I believe our, from our tax paperwork, I think it was sometime in the 80s.
All right.
But that might be a guess.
Okay.
I can say that Visit Casper was around for a long time, and it really took off, I think, when the eclipse was here. I think before that time, and I'll disclose that I wasn't here during the eclipse, and I came in 2019, so I'm not from here. But I think before that time, it was really hard for people to accept the fact that visitors come here,
mm-hmm.
and that we have a tourist-worthy destination.
Mm-hmm.
But once we had the eclipse, and we were able to host that many people, and we got so much of that feedback from those visitors saying, this place is great, we're going to come back, I'm going to share this place with my friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
I think from there it really took off.
Mm-hmm.
And people started to realize, if we build it, they'll come.
Mm-hmm.
And I think since then, our tourism economy has really just started to take off.
How do you deal with naysayers that talk about over-tourism? Because over-tourism is a word out there. I wasn't familiar with it either, but it is a thing. People think that too many tourists are coming to this destination, and we're over emphasizing certain things here in our local community, and we're going to lose some of that authenticity. How do you what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's a phenomenal question. I actually worked for the Tourism Bureau in St. George for a year. I might have mentioned that earlier, and I might have just repeated it. But it was right outside of Zion National Park. And so I got to see firsthand just how negative over-tourism can impact a community.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely don't want that to happen in Casper.
Mm-hmm.
I do track it, and just to give some insight into that data, again, referring back to Zartico, one of the data tracking platforms we invest in, they provide us with a metric called visitor to resident ratio.
Mm-hmm.
And so through the thousands of destinations that they work with around the country and internationally, and through the research that they've done, they've been able to say, if you are consistently seeing a visitor to resident ratio of 1.5 visitors for every one resident, then you might have a problem.
Right.
Over-tourism starts to become a concern at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, we aren't close to that number. On average, or I would say our highest visitor to ratio month in 2023 was July, and it was 0.6. 0.6. So we've got some room to grow.
Yeah.
I think the highest area within our county is Alcova and Fremont Canyon, and theirs is on average about 0.7 to 1. So again, inching up to that 1, but still far away from that 1.5.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it is something we're tracking and ensuring doesn't become a problem. And if it ever were to become a problem, again, luckily I have that firsthand experience to kind of know what needs to be done, what needs to be put in place to prevent it. And really it's ensuring that we are doing our due diligence to move visitors around Casper,
Right.
And not just send them to one place. And looking at Alcova and Fremont Canyon, if that's our highest visitor to resident ratio area, really diving into the analytics of the time of day and the times of year where it's highly trafficked, and then promoting around that time. So making sure people go out there earlier or later in the day or at different times of year to kind of spread that traffic out.
True. And it's true, one of the major issues with over-tourism is overcrowding. And it's true that I've never experienced that, whether it's, every day of the year or specifically July or August. We see there's more tourists. We see there's more, license plates from other states, but we're not at a point where there's overcrowding. So you're absolutely right. There are cities and parts of the U.S. where, the population doubles and triples and quadruples over a period of time, and they make their money in a 2-month period. That's obviously not what we're dealing with here.
Right.
So even though tourism is important, it's not at all oversaturated.
Exactly, and that's the goal, to keep it that way. So it's good to hear that you don't experience it.
Right, absolutely, never have. I think that's one of the things that I love about this town, is that it's big enough, I think, to find your place in this town, but it's not too big that you get lost in this town either. So we're obviously much larger than other towns in Wyoming, and you have enough room to grow, to find success, to find your niche in what you're doing here, but you're not lost in the masses like you would be in Denver or Dallas or places like that.
Absolutely.
So I really love Casper, and I love the size that we're at. We could grow a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah, agreed. Completely agree.
What about the pushback that you probably get from people that say that you're focusing too much on outdoor events, outdoor cultural events, rodeo culture, things like that, and not enough of the other things? Because there are people that don't get involved in the CNFR at all, or anything rodeo related, that live here in Casper. Because you're right, to an extent, where we're a rural community, but we're not the Western, community like you might find in Midwest, or you might find in KC or places like that are outside of Casper. How do you strike a balance, and what do you say to people that say that you're overemphasizing rodeo culture?
Yeah, I'd say it's very relative to the person, right? Especially when it comes from an argument about marketing or a critique about marketing. When you think about how marketing works, if you have your preferences on Facebook to feed you outdoor recreational content, and that's the type of content you're engaging with, then we're going to serve you outdoor rec content all day long to try and get you to come here.
Right.
Same with rodeo. If you are a huge rodeo fan and that's the type of content you interact with, that's what you're going to get served. So if that's where it's coming from, then I'd say we're doing our job well, to be honest with you. But it really goes back to our planning and making sure that we are planning ahead and making sure that we are sharing the love throughout our county, as far as highlighting different businesses and attractions, making sure we're not oversaturating a market or a specific media campaign. And I feel like we do a lot to promote outdoor recreation, because that's the type of visitor we see the most of. And so that is how we're going to benefit the most. But once we do get them here, we do a lot to, again, spread them throughout the community and share with them information on how they can experience our arts and culture while they're here, and why they should go to the NIC, the Nicolason Art Museum, and why they should check out a live concert at David Street Station. So it's really finding that balance, understanding what you're good at and diving into that. But then once you capitalized on those, on that audience, then you have the opportunity to share more information with them.
Got it. Okay. And so people can tap into what they're interested in.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. Let's talk about the future of Casper and the future of Visit Casper. What does the ideal future look like for you in terms of tourism in the next 5 or 10 years? What are on your horizons over at Visit Casper?
On the horizons, we of course have the Wild Sports Ranch, which we touched on. I think that is going to be huge for our community. And if you've had the opportunity to sit through one of their team's presentations, they've talked about the halo effect that facility will bring to our community, and how they expect businesses to pop up and be built around those facilities up there on the hill. So that's very exciting. I do expect some new unique businesses and change to come in. Personally, I love downtown Casper. My wife and I walk downtown just about every weekend in the summer. So I'd love to see, to continue to support the development and revitalization of downtown. I think there's so much opportunity, especially in the old Yellowstone district, for businesses to come in and kind of capitalize on the visitation that area sees. So that's a personal want for me, but we do support those efforts. Ultimately, a thriving tourism economy, helping to support thousands of jobs, and for a community to welcome those tourists and support our efforts, and to fully understand the positive impact that tourism has on Casper. There are so many things that we have here that we would not have if we didn't have a tourism economy. And that's, I think, hard to really grasp and fully understand. Your favorite restaurant might not be here, or they might close. Almost just under 30% of the revenue that restaurants take in every year comes from visitors. So they'd be losing 30% of that revenue if we didn't have tourism. Attractions, activities for your kids, we might not have that if we didn't have tourism. So I'd love for our community to really rally behind that, and really support our efforts. And again, just be really welcoming to visitors when you interact with them.
What is Visit Casper's most ambitious goals like for the next couple of years? Do you have something on the horizon that maybe you can talk about that you would really love to get off the ground?
I don't have anything specific. I can say that if you've seen it in the news, we were really close to hosting the Reno National Air Race Championship event. That's been in Reno, Nevada for the last 60 years, and is a huge, huge event. The estimate of economic impact was about $100 million a year to our economy. So it would have been massive. Right. And we were in the top 2. They said we were about a nose hair away from securing it. Right. And so as far as just ambitions go, I think I would love to see a large-scale event like that come in, and for us to be able to host something like that. I think with all of the progress we've made in the last 5 years, we've finally gotten to the point where we are this close to securing something like that, and for something large to come in. So I would say that's the goal, is to find what it is and bring it here, and just kind of relish in the positive impact it'll have.
Absolutely. It's true that it was disappointing that we lost the Reno air races. I know that Glenn and his team at the airport, and even you guys with Fly Casper, were quite disappointed because we were all working toward that goal of bringing it here, because the economic impact would have been mind-boggling. It would have, put all your current numbers, way out on the bottom of the chart. But at the same time, you're absolutely right. What it means is that we were very close, and so very close means that in the next time an event like this comes around, we might actually get it, because we were not in, we were in there was a selection process, and we were in the running to get it, and we just barely missed it. So it is very promising for the future that we're heading in the right direction, that you guys over at Visit Casper are doing the right things to bring more people here. So it's a very like I mentioned to Casey at Fly Casper Alliance, is that the advocating that she did, her team did, and Visit Casper did is not underlooked or undervalued, because we're getting close. We're moving in the right direction, I think, and we're getting Casper on the map.
I appreciate that. I think it really lit a fire underneath a lot of people in this community, because I think it took a lot to have everybody kind of come together and realize we are capable and we're ready. And then for other people to realize that, and for us to get to the top 2, I think says a lot about Casper and kind of where we're positioned for our future. So I'm really excited, and I do fully believe that we will get something big here soon. I just don't know what it is yet, but I'm excited for it.
But you know it when you know it.
I trust it's going to come.
Right. And like you said, if you build it, they will come. And,
Exactly.
and it's definitely coming. In closing, what's your message to visitors that want to potentially visit Casper? What would you say? What does Casper have to offer? Why would you persuade them to come to Casper this summer or next summer?
Yeah, I'd say please consider Casper as your next destination. I think we truly do have a lot of unique experiences to offer. A lot of things that you'll find here you just can't get anywhere else. When you are here, really focus on our community and the people here, because it's special. They are special, and you just can't compare it to anywhere else. And if you do come, thank you for visiting. We appreciate it. Our community appreciates it. I appreciate it. And stop in to visit Casper. Come into our office and talk to us about why you're here, why you chose us, what you want to do while you're here, and we'll help you have the best trip possible.
Excellent. Well, Wayne, thank you for joining us today. And thank you for tuning in this week. If you've liked this podcast, make sure you like and subscribe. But more importantly, drop a comment. What do you enjoy about Casper? Why do you live here? What's the main thing that you enjoy in this community? And drop a comment. And thanks again for tuning in. And we'll see you in a couple weeks.